Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. Today we are going to be talking about what are the factors to consider when developing a cloud ROI. Through many years we have learned that there's lots of different components that go into developing an ROI and wanted to be able to share some of that with you. The first thing we want to do is a little housekeeping. And if you would like to ask a question, please use the left hand motion, raise your hand to be able to ask a question, and we can unmute you. And all right, it's not forwarding over with the presentation. Here we go. All right, so as you'll see on the left-hand side, there's a little raise hand motion. Raise your hand and we will unmute your line. Enter your question and we'll be able to read that too. I also have somebody helping me along the way, so we'd be glad to assist you with that. All right, return on investment. The calculation for the return on investment, as I started to say at the beginning here, it's the different calculations, it depends on what's right for your company. There's so much that can go into the analysis for that. It's important for you to decide what are the key components for your company. How many employees you have, the different applications that you're working with. Really truly, what is your disaster recovery plan? How long can you be down? And when you're considering moving to the cloud or growing your own infrastructure. So we'll get into that. And I also wanted just to remind you, when you start to do your analysis, feel free to reach out to us. I can help you answer some of the questions that we're going to be evaluating today. So the factors to consider, and we'll go through each one of these today, is capital expenditures versus operating expenses, the location of your data, the infrastructure that's going to take to be able to make the environment that you're looking for, security and audit, staffing, licensing and billing, and then finally going green, adding to that component to give a little added information for you. So the first one is really debating and talking about capital expenditures versus operating expense. The capital expenditure is going to be deductible typically over a 36-month period. In that expenditure, you're going to be talking about hardware, application servers, SQL Server, possibly licensing, and if you decided you wanted to buy a data center or something of that nature, get pretty expensive. But this is where your capital expense, buying equipment and putting it into your asset list. Keeping in mind managing those asset lists over a long period of time. Multiple vendors. Maybe you are working with Dell to buy your hardware. Maybe you're working with a different data center, managing that relationship and that expenditure. A SAN, maybe it's an EMC for your storage area network. Maybe your phone system, managing that as well and buying that up front. These are large upfront costs that you have to think about. The next would be your operating expenses. This is typically what a cloud environment would be, because you're getting a bill on a monthly basis which encompasses all of your hardware, your data center fees, even your phone systems. It's a one vendor typically, or a few items. Maybe you buy your software from Microsoft, but yet you use a cloud provider. So it could be a couple vendors that you're working with. This monthly billing is easy to budget. You're able to add users and remove users as needed, but you can budget that through your year, maybe through your busy time. It's an immediate deduction from your P&L and being able to determine. So thinking about for ROI, capital expenditure versus operating expense. What are you looking for on your when you're doing your analysis? More factors to consider here is location of your data. We hear it very often, unfortunately, that there are some servers still under desks or in very hot closets, and that doesn't really set up for a disaster recovery plan. Disaster recovery plan is really if a server were to fail, or that PC that you have everything loaded up on, or even multiple servers with fat clients, with multiple installs. If they fail, what does that mean to you? Can you be down? Where in the U.S.? This has recently come up with floods. Katrina used to be one of a very important factor whenever I talk about the cloud. That whole entire community was down. They were not able to get back to business. When you have access to a cloud environment, you're able to get back to your business right away. And one that I'm bringing up here is the Boston bombing, because it just shut down a community there as well. People were not able to leave, but you could still continue to, say you had inventory that you needed to process or place orders and keep yourself busy during that day. If you had remote access, you could still continue with your business. It's a pretty drastic thought there, but you really need to think about how does your business work if you are not able to get to that particular server. Do you have a backup plan? Where is it located? How quickly can you recover from something happening? Do you rent space in a data center? This is something where a cloud provider can actually bring you a better cost analysis, because they are able to get better costs and pricing from the data center, because they typically have more racks, more equipment, more of an enterprise level environment to be able to provide to you, versus you going out leasing the space in the data center and having to fill it yourself, or maybe even having open slots that you still need to fill, but it's wasted space. Can you consolidate on the servers that you currently have? A big part of the cloud environment today is virtual servers. So a lot of the cloud environments, back in the original time frame, when I first started working in this 13 years ago, we'd have to order hardware, ship it to the data center. Now what you can do is we can quickly roll out environments with virtual servers. So can you consider consolidating your environment today, adding your Exchange server on one of the virtual servers, your SharePoint, your file share, things like that. Always consider consolidating and using the virtual servers. Long-term leasing, you may get pushed into a data center term where it's 3-year term, but you don't know what your business is going to look like in 3 years, the growth and being able to save on those costs. One thing that's great about the cloud environment is you can limit that long-term leasing, and you don't have to worry about it for long-term. You can change it if you wanted to. You can even bring it back in-house after you've made the decision to move to the cloud. And in my tenure, I've also done multiple data center moves. If you decide that you are going to move from one data center to another, from in-house to a data center, from a data center to a cloud, however you need to do it, you need to consider the costs of that move. It's more than just picking up a server and bringing it over to another location. There's a lot of work that needs to be done within those servers for security and changing IP addresses, and the time is a factor as well. So you can just keep that in mind when you're evaluating your return on investment. Infrastructure. This would be considered all the hardware that goes into making a cloud world, or your own infrastructure internally. Purchasing hardware, again, keep in mind trying to use those the virtual servers, not purchasing physical servers for each of the applications that you're going to be working with. Virtual servers are a huge piece of that. Is it a 3-year cycle? Do you replace those servers after a 3-year time period? It's a typical scenario for them to be retired at that point. Or if you're in a leasing, maybe you return that server back in, and then you get a new one. The servers are evolving so quickly today with the amount of processing and RAM that is available to you that in 3 years time frame it's probably not worth itself anymore, and then you can actually get a brand new one with faster speeds. Cloud is constantly rotating through that as part of the audit process. They have you in maintenance and rolling through those servers and making sure that you're up to the latest and greatest and in maintenance. What is your long-term strategy? One thing that it brings to mind for me is, say, a SAN, which is a storage area network where you're storing all of your data. Is this server, the SAN, going to be able to expand with the growth of the company that you're working with? Cloud environments do have that capability. They plan for the long term and being able to grow for redundancy and disaster recovery plans. Is this something that you're considering for the plan that you have in-house? Do you have multiple servers in case one of your servers crashes, or we're talking about floods or Katrina or things of that nature where one of them goes down? Do you have the capability to get it back up and running, and how long is it acceptable to be down? Are you looking at 24 hours? Are you looking at a couple weeks? These are important factors for you and your business. The cloud provides the ability to scale up and down as needed. This has been really great for companies that I've worked with over since 2008, working through the recession. Companies are able to, the one particular client had 150 users, and they were hit hard. They reduced themselves down to about 50 users. And through several months of hard work themselves, getting back up and growing that business, they were able to add. But what saved them was reduction of that cost. They didn't have license just sitting on the shelf there. They reduced it, no hit on them, no extra penalties or anything of the nature. Infrastructure for new businesses is also something. If you are a new business, having that upfront cost is crucial. You need to be able to invest that back in the business that you're working in versus having those large upfront costs. So considering the cloud, at least to get off your feet and keep it moving, is something to really consider for your return on investment. Security and audit. A cloud provider today, to be able to be in the same market as quality cloud providers, you need to have an SSAE 16. This is an audit process. It replaces the SAS 70. The SAS 70 was a report that would come in and say, yep, you're doing what you say you're doing. Here are the details. A third-party auditor comes in and agrees to that, check boxes, and sends it out so we can have it to our clients. So yep, we're doing what we say we're doing. Security is there. We follow our processes. In your own world, do you need HIPAA compliance? Do you have e-commerce where your compliance needs, where your clients need to be aware that you are in an audit or have been audited? One very crucial piece here is if you have a cloud provider and they have an SSAE, you can hand this document over to your auditors. And I think through all the years that I've been a part of the process for the SAS 70 and the SSAE, we've only had limited questions that come back, but usually it's a stamp of approval immediately after they review that audit document. And it's limited time for your own people, and it saves time and money across the board. You don't have to have valuable people sitting in with auditors for however long it takes, a couple weeks. You can have your people sitting there, or you can hand this document to them, proudly be able to say, here, look at, here's our infrastructure, everything's already taken care of, and they can skip that part of the audit. Is your team actively monitoring with security threats? Do you have the time for your people to be sitting there monitoring? Do you have the equipment to be able to monitor? With the cloud environment, this is already taken care of for you. So considering the factors of time and people, it's crucial for you to think about during your analysis the people costs. How much time and effort are your people putting into this? Do you have the physical security of your data? Having it under your desk or in a closet, you could have somebody come in, steal that. My dentist office actually had their PC stolen directly from their office. No backup, no redundancy, nothing. This computer was taken and they had to send out notices to every single one of their clients letting them know that their data was stolen. And luckily I told them about the cloud, and it's made a big difference in how they do their business today. One key component that I'd like to be able to say, and I think this is just true with all of our clients and the people we work with, cloud offers world-class security on a small business budget. So it could be you with your own, you could have 2 users or you could have 1,000 users. You have the capability of having an enterprise level infrastructure security, audit process, everything with you can imagine for that one fee that you're applying for with a cloud environment. So considering when you have your internal network, your people, evaluating everything, think about the big picture of what you're actually getting with a cloud environment. Staffing. How many people do you staff today, and what do you envision 3 years from now? Do you want to have a SAN? Do you want to have redundancy? Do you already have that, but you need to stay up on with the education to be able to keep up with the latest service packs, the threats that come along with it? A cloud provides a one-neck philosophy or an extension of your team. I like to think of it as an extension because you don't need to replace the people you already have, but you can consolidate that and limit the time and exposure they have to other training. You can put them on other projects. So you have something that you wanted to do for R&D to develop new software for your company, or you want them to spend more time on being able to do demos and trial environments or whatever you need to do for your business. The staffing is a very important piece. How much time do your people spend doing what they do for the IT side, which you could actually outsource and have a part of that one user cost? Licensing and billing. This has been a huge component in the past several years. I know Microsoft's really stepped it up with auditing people, tracking the licensing, the administrative task, making sure that you have enough licenses. I hear a number of people out there who have businesses that they have to track the licensing. They go through a process of putting Office on each of them, the Exchange licenses, Microsoft Dynamics, SQL. This whole big component is something to consider. This actually goes back to staffing, but it's really time, effort, and the billing and licensing component of how much time is spent. Keep that in mind that these valuable employees of yours are taking valuable time and putting it into this administrative task. Billing is also one of the things that I think cloud brings to the table. So, going back to that same story I told you about the client who had 150 users and went down to 50. Not having to have that long-term commitment, being able to reduce users as they need, only pay what they need, being able to add and remove during busy season is a great way to be able to handle and maintain your licensing, your billing processes, your budgets for the years. It's just a great piece to consider, time, effort, and the administrative tasks that go along. This is just, I wanted to add in here about going green. It's something that I heard about a year ago, and I got really excited that businesses are starting to get tax breaks. In certain communities, California is already reviewing and making strides to be able to provide this to you in your business for conserving energy. You are able to say that you do consume less energy by being able to put this into a data center. If you go out and do a search, there's so much information. Cloud providers are starting to use this as a tactic to come out and talk to their clients. But it's just important statistic down at the bottom here. Cloud computing will reduce carbon emissions by 86 million metric tons by the year 2020. That's potential energy savings of more than 12 billion a year. And this can be whether it's telecommuting, eliminating the people on the roads, conserving the energy from the consumption of your community and putting it into the data centers that are already built that may not be filled to capacity, or the tax breaks themselves from being able to say that you're green and be a part of that commitment. So I think this is just some really great information to consider when you're talking about in your own community, in your business. Look into what is available for you for these types of tax breaks and talk to the people around you, hear what they're saying. I think this is just going to be something that starts to pick up and it's going to be great for the cloud world. So just a quick summary here about what we talked about, capital expenditures versus operating expenditures. Think about how you want to capture that cost. Is it going to be over your 36-month period? You want to get those hardware costs, and or maybe you already have, but you want to be able to get this through the time frame of 36 months. Do you want to just have a bill once a month and keep that as an operating expense versus a capital? Location of your data. This is just a very important component that we talked about. Where is it at? How long of a disaster can you handle before your business is going to take an insane hit because you don't have the redundancy built in, or it's in a bad location, or you haven't thought about your data center itself. Maybe it's on the East Coast, the West Coast, floods could happen. It's just something to consider when you're evaluating what to do with your data. The infrastructure itself, rotating through that three-year time frame. Do you want to be able to have it where it rotates? Do you want to be able to just pay a bill and it's just nice and easy for you? Or do you want to be able to have it and hold it and put it in your closet or your data center? Security itself, being able to have the team of people, the extension of your team. Do your people stay up on the security and the audits process? When you have an auditor come in, would it benefit you to be able to hand over this SSAE to have that done and get your people back to work? The people that are involved in making this successful, how valuable are they to your business? Are they doing everything they possibly can today? But it would be so great to be able to have that next level up. One thing to remember is in a cloud world, your people still can be involved of manipulating the SQL databases or running queries or do what they need to do. It's just the cloud world becomes an extension. Licensing and billing, that administrative nightmare, that task, the worrying about having enough licenses, are we compliant? Those are the administrative nightmare things once again. And finally, going green, being able to note that you are part of this process to reduce the emissions, or getting that tax break, not having to consume all of the energy in your community, pushing it out and getting it into a data center. That was it. We really wanted to keep it short and sweet. We will be able to provide this over to you to be able to review later. I am always here for you if you have any questions, to be able to talk through your own particular environment. As in the beginning, we talked about how it's, there's not a right ROI for cloud. Each scenario is completely different. Each evaluation is completely different. You have different scenarios. So I'll be more than glad to talk through it with you. Get you comfortable with your own world, considering what you have today and what the cloud could bring to be able to help you. On the screen right now is my contact information. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. But thank you all for your time today. We really appreciate it.